This is the Ohio AgNet podcast powered by Ohio Corn and Wheat. Experience the benefits of membership. Join or renew today at ohiocornandwheat.org. Throughout rural Ohio, there's a unified yet specialized relationship between Farm Credit Mid-America and Rural First. On this Ohio AgNet podcast, learn how the two lending teams are working together to serve rural families through every stage of life, on and beyond the farm. Plus, whether inheriting or buying farmland for the first time, a new farmland owner must choose what to do with that land. To help in that decision-making process, Robert Moore with The Ohio State University created a beginner's guide to farmland ownership. Find out more about it and some of the questions answered in that guide coming up after this as the Ohio AgNet podcast continues.
Ohio Corn and Wheat, working on behalf of farmers.
Ohio Corn and Wheat has some vital roles in helping the profitability of Ohio corn farmers.
Ohio Corn and Wheat's role in creating the next generation of successful farmers is bringing those farmers together.
It's important for farmers all across Ohio to get involved with Ohio Corn and Wheat just because they are farmer-led and it lets our voice be heard.
Experience the Ohio Corn and Wheat Growers Association. Join or renew your membership now at ohiocornandwheat.org.
A very specialized and great relationship between two organizations that work very closely together across rural Ohio, talking about Farm Credit Mid-America and Rural First. Joining me is Mary Fannin. She's a financial officer with Farm Credit Mid-America, and Denise Rhodes, a loan officer with Rural First. Good to see you both, and thanks for having me here today.
Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.
Mary, I want to start with you. Let's talk about your relationship. Not personally, I'm sure you guys are the best of friends, but the relationship between the two organizations, how does it work?
Yeah, so Farm Credit Mid-America was created 100 years ago out of the farm credit system to provide a stable source of financing to farmers, agriculture, and just to support rural communities. But in 2017, we recognized a growing need that there were a lot of consumers who wanted to live that rural lifestyle, have a house out in the country, have some acreage, but those properties don't fit into a traditional lending model. So that's where Rural First comes in.
As Mary said, in 2018, Farm Credit Mid-America launched the Rural First brand, which was able to bridge that gap between the ag side and rural living, and which created a common space for us to be able to provide some of those living situations and lending for what matters most, buying rural homes, land, or building a home on that land.
Mary, what does it look like when a farm credit relationship goes outside of the operation on the farm itself?
Yeah, and there are so many situations where that can happen with Farm Credit and Rural First coming together. We have, on the farm credit side, we've worked with these customers for a long time. We have an understanding of their land, their operation, their family dynamics. So when they're ready to take that next step and maybe build a home or buy a home, we know how to bridge that gap with their consumer lending needs, and they don't have to go to another lender. We can bring Rural First in. I have a family in particular that every year we would go out for their annual financial update, and one of the topics that would come up is his dream to build a home on the farm. And we would talk about that year after year, and eventually baby number 3 came along, and it was time to make that dream a reality. So I got with Denise. I helped her understand their finances, their operation, their family dynamics before I made that introduction, and she took over from there to help them build that house.
What really makes a difference with that is that we understand the farm business and the farm lifestyle, which helps us to be able to bridge that gap, as Mary mentioned, pulling us in to help build that family dream. When we have customers who are part-time or full-time farming, it's often hard to separate that work-life balance, and that is definitely what they needed. They wanted to make sure that they were be able to remain close to what matters most, and that is their farm operation and being close to where they needed to be on a day-to-day basis, but yet still be able to have a personal private space with their spouses and children. And in this case, it worked out perfectly for them because they were able to build a dream home. We were able to help them finance that, and it was built on family land that is really the core source of their family income and production. So it was a great experience.
You mentioned the family dream and the farm dream, and obviously a lot of those things you talk about is in the present. But Mary, let's talk about that next generation and keeping them involved and planning for that. How does that work as far as your work with rural Ohioans across Ohio?
Yeah, so succession planning isn't just about ownership. A lot of times it's also about making space in that operation for multiple families and multiple generations as they grow. So I have a particular operation in mind that I worked with for quite some time, and they were blessed enough that all of their children wanted to stay and be a part of the farm, which was great. As they grew, they diversified, they added different areas of the business, but they needed some physical space. So they were having lots of children of their own. So at that point, again, we brought Denise in to meet with them. I shared that understanding of their farm, their operation, and she helped them build their house.
Which is great because oftentimes the Farm Credit Mid-America side understands that operation, how the business operates and what their succession plan looks like, and being able to bring us in to assist those families who do want to stay together and who have those growing families to be able to provide and understand how that land works and what we have to work with and how we can put that all together to be able to build those homes. We were able to work closely with the Farm Credit Mid-America side to be able to understand that farm income and how that looks for the future and what that provides. And at the end of the day, being able to provide those spaces, again, to be able to separate that work-life balance, but to be able to keep them close to what matters most, we were able to provide those homes where adult children and grandchildren can enjoy the legacy of that farm and to be able to hold on to those dreams for future generations.
Well, and as you know, a lot of these succession plans, as much as mom and dad and grandma and grandpa would like everyone to come back and farm, that's not always the case. And so Denise, how does that relationship look when it's the non-farmer families that come back to the farm? They really value the lifestyle, they value the land, they value the opportunity to still be around that family, as you mentioned, but how does that relationship look for the non-farm families?
That actually, as I mentioned earlier, was one of the reasons why Farm Credit Mid-America branched out and provided that outlet with Rural First, because it did provide an outlet for people who have left the farm. Not everybody stays in farms part-time or full-time. They take jobs or find careers that are off the farm, but strongly value those relationships that they had and the rural lifestyle that they grew up with, and now want to come back and either be a part of the family farm or close to the family farm, and we can provide that opportunity for them to be able to finance those homes or purchase a home that's close to or connected to the farm to be able to raise their families there and to be able to instill those values in their children who may come back and work on the farm in the future.
Ty, it's not just a house. It is an opportunity to live that lifestyle, have another family, another generation living in the agricultural world, to be a part of that and have those same values that we all treasure, right? Closeness to family, closeness to the land, and just a hard work ethic.
A lot of information here today with Denise and Mary, but Denise, if people wanted to find out more about the relationship between Farm Credit Mid-America and Rural First, how can they do that?
Absolutely. You can find information on the website through fcma.com or ruralfirst.com. Get some more information online, or you can reach out to any one of our local offices who have on-site loan officers who are available to talk to you in person or meet you out at the farm to be able to find those situations where we can find a solution for your needs.
Denise Rhodes with Rural First, Mary Fannin with Farm Credit Mid-America, our guest here from Alliance. Whether inheriting or buying farmland for the first time, a new farmland owner must choose what to do with that land. Do you farm it, sell it, lease it, preserve it? All viable options that require an understanding of economic considerations and legal requirements. To help answer some of those questions, Robert Moore, research attorney with the Ohio State University Agricultural and Resource Law Program, helped to create the Beginner's Guide to Farmland Ownership, and he joins us to talk more about it. Robert, always great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
So what did you see happening with farmland owners that made you realize there needed to be a resource like this, So Now You Own a Farm guide? Was there a common question or challenge that kept coming up that nudged you in this direction?
Yeah, so when I was in private practice at the law firm, we'd often finish up in a state administration, and maybe the mom and dad left kids farmland, but the kids were never involved in the farm, or maybe you inherit farmland from a aunt or uncle and you really weren't involved in the farm. And these people would say, well, what do I do with it? What it's worth? Who should I call? And so I thought it would be a good idea to put this publication together. So now when attorneys or Farm Bureau staff or anybody get the question, what do I do with this new farm I own? You can give them this publication. And I think it has a lot of good practical advice in it.
This day and age, a lot of people inherit farmland without ever having farmed themselves. What are the first maybe 2 or 3 decisions a new landowner should make after they find themselves owning a farm?
Yeah, I think probably the important part is to understand the economics of it. And that is, what is your land worth? How much potential income can it produce for you? And then we look into, well, should we hold it and lease it? Should we sell it? Should we look at alternative uses for it? So in my mind, it's really getting comfortable with the economic aspect of the farmland first.
I think that for most farmers, that leasing component would be where we hope that new landowners would go. One of the biggest sections of your guide actually focuses on leasing farmland. Walk us through the difference between cash rent, share rent, flex leases. Explain which options you tend to recommend for those beginning landowners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the good thing is we have some different options. So if the landowner says, I want to lease it, just kind of want it simple, don't know a lot about farming, what's the best way to do it, then cash rent is the easiest. It's, here's the payment, or, here's the lease rate, farmer makes the payment, the tenant really doesn't have to be very involved. So that, in my opinion, that's the most common type of lease and easiest for new owners. But sometimes the owner will want to share in the profit. So then we may do a share rent, and that's where the landowner, depending on what other inputs they contribute, get anywhere from a third to a half of the crop. And that sounds good in good years, but in bad years, cash rent might be better. So the share rent is a way for the tenant to be more involved and potentially share in the windfalls of a good year. And then we've got a flex lease, and this is where the tenant gets a portion of the crop or gets additional payments if the price and or production meet certain thresholds. So in a good year, the tenant might get additional compensation. Now, the flex lease is the hardest lease to implement because we got to determine how are we calculating price, yield. There's got to be a lot of trust. So flex leases I wouldn't recommend for the beginner landowner usually, but maybe after they've owned it a while, want to be a little bit more involved, a little more savvy in how it all works, then we could move to a flex lease.
You mentioned one of the first questions new landowners ask is, what is this piece of ground worth? Why is a professional appraisal so important? And what mistakes do people make when they try to estimate farmland value on their own?
Yeah, so, those of us in the farm world know that, a farm over here may not be the same as a farm, just a mile or two away in Ohio. So that's what we try to explain to new landowners is, hey, your farm is unique and you need to determine what the value is on your farm. And, don't go by other farms in the county because it can vary so much. So yes, getting a good appraisal is often the first step. The nice thing is when farmland is inherited, there's usually an appraisal done for the estate process. So if it's an inherited farm, there's probably a relatively recent appraisal available. But if there's not for whatever reason, or maybe it's a gift, I think getting a good appraisal is the best place to start, because now here's how much equity I have. How much equity do I want this to make for me? Do I want to turn this equity into cash? Those kind of decisions.
The So Now You Own a Farm resource guide that Robert Moore and his team created goes beyond just farming and leasing and talks about alternative uses for farmland as well. What are some of the opportunities new owners may not realize they have when it comes to the use of that farmland?
Yeah, so whether it's a curse or a blessing in Ohio, we do have a number of alternative uses. So whether that's oil and gas, which has been a big deal over the last 10 or 15 years, solar, which everybody knows about. Now we've got data centers, but it could be maybe a conservation easement. Maybe it's this land has been in the farm for many generations. You want to make sure it doesn't get developed. So an alternative use could potentially be a conservation easement to make sure that it stays as farmland or at least isn't developed into residential or commercial property. So many different alternative uses available. And in the book, we lay out the pros and cons of each.
One of the parts of the guide that may not be thought about a whole lot, but is so important, is that discussion about protecting farmland from risk. Why do you believe liability insurance and even business entities like an LLC is so important for landowners to at least take a look at?
Land is a relatively low risk asset. Our land isn't driving down the road in a car or tractor. But even with that in mind, there are things that can happen. If the tenant farmer has an accident, a fertilizer spill, something on your farm, there is a really good chance you're going to be included in the lawsuit. Now, whether you're liable or not, it's a different matter. But you, as the owner, are probably going to be in the lawsuit. And that alone, having an attorney to represent you is worth the cost of the insurance right there. But farmland is just too valuable. It's too hard to replace not to have good insurance. So anybody that owns farmland, call your insurance agent. Make sure you have adequate coverage, both on what you're doing, meaning if you're renting it, farming it yourself, make sure you're covered and you have enough coverage. So talk to your insurance agent about that. And then LLCs are a good backup plan for liability. They help insulate the liability by keeping it in the LLC and not letting it go out. So again, LLC is a good backup plan, but farm insurance should always be the primary risk protection strategy.
So much great information in this guide, but if someone only takes away one message after reading So Now You Own a Farm, what do you hope that is?
That it's a very valuable asset, but it does take some management, and managed properly, it can be a great source of income for you and future generations.
How can someone get their hands on this, Robert?
Yeah, so the publication is available at no cost on our farm office website. That's farmoffice, one word, .osu.edu. You just go to the legal library.
Robert Moore, research attorney for the Ohio State University Agricultural and Resource Law Program. Appreciate your time and insights. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a wrap for this Ohio AgNet podcast, powered by Ohio Corn and Wheat. Experience the benefits of membership. Join or renew today at ohiocornandwheat.org. There are video and audio versions of this podcast. You'll find the video version on Ohio AgNet TV and on our Facebook page as well. You'll find the audio at ohioagnet.com. Make sure and like, subscribe, and follow wherever you watch or listen to your favorite podcasts. Until next time, I'm Ty Higgins. We'll see you down the road.